All right, today we are breaking down a Lions season that went from Super Bowl dreams to playoff elimination. We're going to examine what went wrong against Minnesota, but we're also going to preview the season finale in Chicago, analyzing which free agents deserve new deals and mapping out Detroit's draft positioning. This isn't about hot takes, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't about hating on Jared Goff and MCDC. We're not firing everybody. It's about understanding what happens next for a franchise at a crossroads. Forward down the field.
Jameer down to 10. Jameer to the 5. Jameer to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
And off Berry. Surge to the left side. Breaks the tackle. And he will take it in. Touchdown.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. That's what I'm talking about. It is caught. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Oh, baby, what a play that time. Aiden Hutchinson read that and blew it up. Big time stand by that defense.
All right, Lions, Gray Mains family, welcome back. And welcome back to Dan Keener, who's been out under the weather, but he is back and spry and ready to dive in. Dan, are you feeling 100% or are you feeling a little more Aleem McNeil?
I mean, you know how it is. You got to use your sick leave by the end of the year. It's use it or lose it, right?
Yeah,
so I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to take off 3 shows, whatever.
Kind of like Marcus Davenport took off his last 3 games? No.
Well, I'd have to just do nothing right now for the rest of the show if that was the case.
Oh, God. DBC, Dr. Brent Kreider, all the way from DC. How we doing, sir?
Oh, well, I'd be better if the Lions were winning, but you know how that goes.
Yeah. Folks, we've been, we are the Lions Gray Mains. We've been around here for quite a few. We've been fans and followers of this team for quite a few years. This ain't nothing, right? So there's still a lot to be positive about. There's a lot to be negative about. There's no question. There's a lot of building blocks, that we're going to discuss, and we're going to discuss what's in front of us, which is the Chicago Bears, and what it means for us, and who's going to play. I think is a legitimate point of conversation. So, but I think first and foremost, just to let everybody know, the chat's open. So if you are, and the only place that for whatever reason, when the show started, I got a notification that we are not going live on X. So that's a bummer. So the man who runs our X channel, who happens to be here, Dan, I think maybe a tweet to let everybody know that we're not live there, and maybe a YouTube link to pull over everybody in case they are normally watching us there. And well, of course, we post clips and to the replay. So even if you're an X follower, you'll be able to catch the show in its entirety. But boys, I think first and foremost, I don't want to spend too much time on this because it was just so painful. But, obviously the game, the turnover catastrophe in Minnesota, 6 turnovers. This was a team that, we go into the game with the fewest giveaways in the NFL. We hadn't turned over the game, and we haven't turned over the ball in like 4 straight games. And we have 6 turnovers against a pretty depleted Vikings team. We felt very confident with Max Brosmer as their quarterback. And of course, Max Brosmer wasn't really a factor. It was our inability to do anything on offense. So guys, I'll start. Brent, I'll start with you. What does the film tell you about, what broke down? Was it scheme? Was it execution on the offense, or was it something else?
It reminds me of a Rocky movie where he said, "What's your prediction for the fight?" Pain.
My prediction, pain.
Pain, right? Because I have not seen a game that ugly in a while. The good news is that it's over. The bad news is that the Lions are out of the playoff contention and have blown any opportunity to make the playoffs for this season. When you break this game down and you look at it piece by piece, there are so many things that went wrong. The list is long. The offensive line couldn't block. The Goff was under constant duress. we managed to still have, a couple hundred yards passing. We went through and we shut them down except for one long play, held their quarterback to 51 yards passing. The interesting thing is we didn't create any turnovers, but we held them, pretty much in check except for that one long touchdown run of 65 yards. But even on that play, it was just, three breakdowns, things that should never happen. Everybody's sprinting to the line of scrimmage. Hutch doesn't keep contained on the edge. The corner, the safety end up tripping each other, and off to the races he goes. So in the end, it was just like a Abbott and Costello movie where everybody just kept tripping on everybody and poking each other in the eye, and it was painful to watch.
It really was. It really was. And Dan, how much? I mean, I keep on going back to this. It seems like this has been a pebble in our shoe all season, and then it finally just became this huge rock, which is that Frank Ragnow, his retirement and the timing of that just created these. I mean, you saw it in the Green Bay game, and I mean, there were bits and pieces during the season where we're like, oh, I think we have it figured out. I think we've got things going along, and then more injuries along the interior of the offensive line, and it just really never gelled all season. How much of this turnover disaster, Dan, do you think it just traces back to the center position in this offensive line chemistry?
I mean, at least for the Vikings game, Brian Flores combined with a bunch of inexperienced guys or guys that are playing through injuries, not a good mix. I mean, he is just the absolute master of lining 10 guys up and you just don't know who's coming, who's going, and he's very confusing. I'll be very happy to see him leave the NFC North because it sounds like he may be out of here. I'd love to see him go to Dallas or somewhere else. I mean, actually, I'd love to see him go to the AFC personally, but he's a hell of a coach, and he runs a very hard defense. Now, we've handled him in the past, but you had a very experienced group last year, with the exception of Mahogany, but by the time we played them, he had gotten some experience, but you had Zeitler, you had Ragnow, you had, Penne and Decker. So we were in pretty good shape to handle them last year, but communication this year, between guys playing hurt, so that minimizes their ability. The tight end position is something that's not talked about enough. They're part of the O-line group, and our tight ends are just crap at blocking. I mean, they just we lost Laporta.
Yeah, the Laporta injury.
Wright. Not that they're, Wright's more of a receiver, but you just lose the experience. And, even getting in a body, a hat on a hat. The new guys, Fursker actually played well. I wouldn't mind seeing them look at me bringing him back as the experienced guy next year. But, it's just communication issues, too many injuries, too many newbies. It just wasn't in the cards, so we'll see. To Brad's credit, and a lot of people aren't giving him any credit, this guy has tried to get ahead of this. He's drafted Colby Sorsdal, he's drafted Giovanni Manu, he's drafted Ratledge, he's drafted Mahogany. So he's spent, 4 fifth round or earlier picks on offensive linemen in the last 2 drafts, trying to get ahead and prepare for the day when Decker and Ragnow and these guys retire. I mean, I don't think Ragnow retiring caught them completely by surprise, hence the Ratledge pick in round 1. But, trying to lean on Glasgow as a center, which, out of the 3 interior positions, it's probably his least effective position.
Yeah.
He's most strength is at right guard. Over the years he's played all 3, and the 2 times he's played center for us and for Denver, the 1 year he ends up, he has some good games, but he ends up struggling the entirety of the season. So, it happens. So we'll see where we go.
What's interesting, guys? I was looking at the history of the Vikings versus the Lions, and Dan brings up a good point about Flores, and I give Flores all the props that Dan's given him. But we had won 5 games in a row against a much better team than the Vikings fielded this year. Dan's previously talked about the quarterback situation in Minnesota, and we, for whatever reason, we just were not able to match up. And I think Dan's on to the main factor, and that is our ability up front to be able to protect the quarterback and create running lanes. Gibbs got no running room at all. 40, I think he had 41, 42 yards.
Yeah.
And so, Dan, you're spot on. When we start to peek a little bit ahead at the offseason, I think what we're going to see is a whole revamped offensive line. The Bears did it. There's a number of teams that have created new offensive lines by adding a couple free agents and players that they've drafted, developed, coming into starting positions. And I think the Lions have the makings of a good offensive line. When Dan mentioned Mahogany and he mentioned the rookie from Georgia and Ratledge, and then we saw a little bit of Frazier. I think we're going to have to shore that offensive line up with a couple veterans, guys. I don't see any way around it this offseason. I mean, pipe dream is that Ragnow comes back, but Goff, this week said he doesn't have any indication that Ragnow is going to come back next year. But I'd certainly put the feelers out about if he was willing to come back late this season. I'd put the feelers out early and often to say, hey, what's your likelihood of coming back, because that would shore up the offensive line tremendously when you got three solid guards, a Pro Bowl center, and I do think, and this is something that I think is worth digesting it or digging into and digesting. What are the Lions going to do with left tackle? Do they end up moving on from Decker? Decker's a warrior, but the Lions did not get any push this year. The lanes, I'd be really interested to see in the offseason when we do our analysis of how well Decker did, to see if he's lost a step and if it's time to move in a different direction.
Leave it to you guys to take us completely off topic and start talking about what we're going to do in the off season. I thought we were going to talk about that. No, I'm kidding. I'm busting balls. But folks, the chat is open, and we appreciate everyone joining us. Donkey Kong 43 says Holmes has drafted a bunch of busts. Okay. I feel like that's not a completely correct statement. And there's been a handful of players that haven't worked out. I don't know if I'm ready to, Hendon Hooker. Yes, we can say that's a bust, right? Broderick Martin. Yeah, we could say that's a bust.
It's his
right?
projects that are
right. Giovanni Manu.
Narrative.
Not yet. It doesn't look great yet, but
Probably.
We'll see. We'll see. But Donkey Kong, I love it. And Donkey Kong says best free agent center and then a tackle in round one. So we're already talking about April. I love it.
Donkey Kong and I are aligned. Donkey Kong and I are spot. Hey, Donkey Kong, I do appreciate the comments because, frankly, this is going to be a major offseason for how well did we do for Campbell and Brad Holmes.
Yep.
It is because we can point to all the great draft picks, Brian Branch, Laporta, Gibbs. I mean, we have just got stacks of players that were hits. So to say that, that he drafts a bunch of busts, I don't think is fair. I think his percentage is probably in the top quarter at worst of GMs and their draft success rates. So I don't think it's fair to just say that, he's a terrible evaluator of talent.
Yeah. And like I said, the issue here, I think, is that he's given up a lot of draft picks to move up to grab guys like Vaki and Tesla and Manu and that dude from Canada that got cut and went back to Canada, that defensive end.
Oh, yeah.
That's the biggest issue, is that we're giving up middle round picks, 4, 5, and 6 round picks to move up to grab guys, and those guys are not necessarily panning out. Hooker was the end of the 3rd round. That wasn't a trade up, but I think he used a comp pick on that one that maybe could have gone somewhere else. Hey, we do need a development quarterback, but you don't draft a guy that's only 3 years younger than your starter as a development quarterback. So I did some numbers today. We actually are pretty well stacked on the O-line next year if we give Nice a exclusive rights contract. right now in 26, assuming Decker comes back, and I don't see why he wouldn't, we've got nine offensive linemen under contract for next year, including Nice. And Decker's slated to make like 21 million next year. He's still under contract in 27 for 24 million, and then 28 is when his contract, his void year hits. So I don't see Decker retiring this year. And frankly, a lot of the problem with Decker's hate, the dude's been playing with one arm. I mean, he's not practicing. He's playing with a shoulder injury, so he's out there gutting it out. But here's the thing, when you're not practicing, you're not perfecting your craft. You're not getting your timing down with the guy next to you during practice, So I think a lot of that, yes, Decker is probably playing below what he's played in the past, but I think a lot of it can be 100% attributed to the lack of practice and the shoulder injury. So if he gets that fixed in the offseason and he's willing to play another year or two, as long as he stays, reasonably healthy, I think he intends to play out his contract, because he made some comments about his kids and they're getting to the point where he wants to be with them and play with them, but it's kind of hard to give up $50 million over the next 2 years. So
and I mean, you guys have heard me all year talk about Glasgow. Even
he's gone.
He's got to be gone.
Yeah.
So I think I could live with Decker. I could live with having Decker come back for another season, but there needs to be some work done in the offseason to make sure he comes into the year healthy. The offensive line is our identity, and the Lions were not able to line up and physically impose their will on teams like they've been able to do the previous 2 seasons. Run the ball on those 4th and shorts, the debates that we've had about 4th and, going forward on 4th and short, and being able to impose your will. I agree with the depth, but we don't have any starting material beyond, the 4 starters that I think we agree. And we've got a lot of developmentals, Nice and Frazier, et cetera, that I wouldn't even mind our Mr. Skipper getting re-signed for depth. When he's played this year, he's played pretty well.
Yeah.
So, plenty of depth, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Lions drafted an offensive tackle if they end up picking around 13, 15, somewhere in that range. There are some, doing some early evaluations, but that's something we'll dig more into later.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll touch on this in the off season, but there's a sneaky spot that really needs some attention that nobody's talking about.
Long snapper.
Yeah, no, Hogan Hatton, that guy, man.
He's good.
Brian Kreider, thanks for joining us. Decker's, he said, Brian says Decker's a warrior, but oft injured and seems to be the weakest link against the best edge players sometimes. There's a lot of tackles that are weak links against some of the best edge players. You're going to get them sometimes. You're not going to get them other times. Even Penei Sewell has had some missteps this year against really good edge players. It's going to happen. Mike Terry, who's joining us as well as the Gray Mains, our stat man in the back, says Decker's PFF rating is 66.8, 41st out of 88 tackles that met the number of plays. So that's right in the middle of the road, as opposed to Glasgow, who has a 57.4 PFF grade, who's 35th out of 41. So I don't think we're going to really have to worry about
Glasgow's issue is his contract. If they want to bring him back as a backup, 100% as a backup, he's going to need to take probably a massive pay cut. He's scheduled to earn $8.84 million next year. And considering every other guy on the roster, Ratledge, Mahogany, Nice, Manu, Sorsdal, they're all like in the mid to low 1.2 million. I think Ratledge is 1.7, being a first rounder. That's just way too much money for a guy that's just not. And granted, again, Glasgow's been had a knee injury all year. I mean, literally, he's played with it since like week 4. So he's missed games because of it. And so we're judging these guys from our chairs and our couches, but they're out there putting their bodies on the line. But the bottom line is Ragnow played for like 3 years with half his toe not working. So, and he still was a Pro Bowler. So you got to try and find that type of a replacement. And was he a second or third rounder?
I feel like he was a second
rounder,
rounder,
I believe. I believe
came from
let's
Arkansas?
Arkansas,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Second
and
or third.
I think he's a bit of a unicorn, though. I think he's,
Sure.
and I tell you what, after after seeing what he did for us for as many years, and then us not having him, I tell you what, the center position has taken on a whole new priority for me in watching this team, man. And I thought, well, after seeing Guacan play against the Steelers, even though we didn't win, I thought, oh, geez, here we go. This is going to be, and he actually had a fairly decent game against the Steelers, all things considered. But against the Vikings, clearly not. Some really bad snaps, and overall there was a lot of sloppy play. It wasn't just a Guacan at the center position.
The problem with this year is offensive line is really not strong in this draft unless we get a bunch of underclassmen that declare, because it's pretty thin. There's a kid from Utah, a couple of guys from Utah. That Caden Proctor, that guy from Alabama, he's going to be a guard. He's too big to play tackle and too slow in the NFL. But there are a couple guys out there that are interesting if you want to get into the bottom of round 1, top of round 2. But I just don't think we're going to land in the sweet spot to grab an O lineman. So it may have to be a second or a third to do that.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap up because I do want to talk about one thing as it relates to last week's game before we start talking about the Lions versus the Bears and what we do have to watch for, because it is quote unquote meaningless, but not fully meaningless. And we're gonna try to pull some meaning and value out of the game that's happening this weekend. I would say that, and this will be good for you, Brent, since you're the chief optimism officer here at Lions Gray Mains. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I understand, he's got a knee, he's likely not going to play. And why would you play him? 100 receptions for the 4th straight year. So I think that's obviously he's in, sort of that elite category for wide receivers. This team goes as he goes for the most part. Just a dog, played with that knee. He was clearly hurt, and that last play, couldn't do it. So I thought, that plus you got the edge rush, Hutchinson and AQM showed up, big time from a pass rush perspective. I think I saw it where they're the second Lions duo in history with 10 sacks apiece. I want to say. I'm trying to remember who the other two were. Was it Al Baker and Doug English, or I don't know. English was a tackle. I'm trying to remember the other two edges that had 10 sacks each. I'm sure Mike Terry will look
Dave
at it.
Purifoy was around with Bubba Baker, but I don't remember.
Might have been Mike Kofer, and he played outside linebacker.
Yeah.
But guys, this is what we used to do as Lions fans. We'd go 6-10 and then talk about, at least Barry Sanders had 1,700 yards and 14 touchdowns. And did you see that one play where he made the guy look stupid? Yeah, but we lost 34-17. That's what we used to talk about was things. But I think those are carryovers into next season. I think, especially as we talk about, what we do with AQM from a free agency perspective. Moving into next season, I think Hutch finally came into
you nailed it, Chris. It was Doug English and William Gay.
There we go.
In 1983.
Oh, William Gay. I said Al Baker. So William Gay and Doug English. So I got 50% on it.
It was, and it says the Lions have had 2 instances of 2 defensive ends, each recording 10 or more sacks. English and Gay and Hutch. And
English was a D
AQM.
tackle. Why?
I know.
I don't know why.
But that's what it says on the review here that I did.
Okay. And then Mike, thank you for this. Actually, Ragnar was a first rounder, 20th overall pick in 2018.
Well, that's right. He was, wasn't
he? Yeah. So, all right. Any other positive takeaways besides, Amon-Ra or pass rushing? Isaac Tesla. I mean, I think. I think he's earned
14 catches, 6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
All he does is catch with one hand for a touchdown.
He's outperformed a few first-round wide receivers this year.
Yeah, and look, the only quibble that there is to have about him is how much we gave up to get him,
or how much we didn't use him during the year.
Yep. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Was he ready? I think that was I think
Was
that
he
was
ready?
I think that was it. Like there was times, and everyone wanted to stay positive on it, but you could see there were times where he was just like not
Yeah.
where he
Well,
should be,
and
and
let's be honest, this offense is driven by progression, right? And it's going to be St. Brown, then Williams, then Laporta, or St. Brown, Laporta, Williams, and then you're getting to either Khalif or Tesla, right? So a lot of times the ball came out well before, whether he was open or not. The ball was going somewhere else, before it came to him. But yeah, I think it's fair to. Was he ready? And then he's so deep in the progression. It's kind of like Puka. Nakua is he's in that money spot. He came in and there was no drop off between Cooper Kupp and him when Kupp got hurt, because that's the money role in that offense of McVay's, is that particular position. So as long as you can catch the ball, you're going to put just monster numbers. So
yeah, and boy, does Tesla remind me of Nakua. He's a bigger kid.
super version.
I don't. He's not nearly as. We're not going to get into Nakua versus Tesla here, but I think Nakua.
The point is, did you see
Nakua yards after the catch is like is like a strong running back, almost a fullback.
Yeah.
He is,
but again, it's part of the system, right? I mean, that's the design. It's amazing when you hit a guy on a crossing route in stride, how many more yards he can get.
Yeah.
Versus having him do a button hook and stop and getting drilled,
Yeah. Or force him to slow down and reach behind him. And,
right. Yes.
Yeah.
But
and that's exactly my point, Dan, is the way that he runs and those crossing routes. It's just eerily similar. And I think Dan Campbell, Dan Campbell made that comparison this year between the two of them.
I'm not worried at all. I mean, wide receiver is the one spot. Next year, Kennedy is still an exclusive or restricted free agent.
Preseason legend Tom Kennedy, ladies and gentlemen.
But we've got St. Brown, Williams, Tesla, and Lovett next year under contract, plus Kennedy. I'm sure will get offered. So we'll see if the kid Meeks gets brought back. I'm sure he will. Maybe he'll progress, but. They got to figure out what they want to do with Khalif. He's that gadget guy. He's the kick returner, punt returner, the slot dude. Not big, but he's super quick. Do we have a replacement for him? So we'll see where that goes.
I think the other good point is, as long as Monty sticks around, running back's pretty set.
He's not going anywhere.
Well, he's got an $8.6 million deal for next year, and the Lions are going to be looking to trim and hack money and renegotiate deals. I think, there's a handful of guys that are ripe for that. You look at, Dan mentioned Taylor Decker's big contract next year.
It's 2.6% of our cap. I think we'll be okay with him.
Aleem McNeil is another big one. Taylor Decker is 7.02% of our cap next year.
It doesn't. Goff's going to get renegotiated. He's got a base salary of $55 million. That's going to go down. And then you've got him at 55. St. Brown's 27.5. Penny's 20. McNeil's 23.8. DJ Reed's 14.5. These guys will have extra years tacked on as a signing bonus, and they'll clear a boatload of space.
Yeah, those are just the bases, though, Dan. The cap hit's much bigger than that with the signing bonuses.
Well, right, but
Jared Goff is $70 million. Jared Goff's cap hit is $70 million.
He is $70 million, right? But 14.6 of that signing bonus. The thing is, though, is the base salary is where you make your cap space at. We are sitting at 5.893 million with only 38 contracts right now. So we're going to have to clear a bunch of base salaries and extend these guys out, as signing bonuses. You take 20 million off, spread it over 4 years. That's 5 million per year as a signing bonus, but that clears up 20 million this year.
Yeah, we get to roll over almost 21 million from this year to next year.
Ooh, that is correct.
We're gonna have about 35 million, 36 million to start, and then there's been some discussions about we could have an excess of 100 million doing what you're suggesting. with
And we may
with
still get
golf and
back
the
that
others.
money from Cam Sutton too after he screwed us.
Hmm.
That's $6.5 million right there that we're owed because we cut him because we know why.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
So let's transition into why you need to watch the Lions versus the Bears as our last game in a game that most obviously does not matter. We're out of the playoffs. The Bears have a number 2 seed to play for, so you're going to see them start and do their best to win because they absolutely have something to play for. But I thought it was interesting if you watched Campbell's press conference, he was absolutely asked, about this, and he said, he specifically would be, mention the offensive line as something that he wanted to see more from, and I don't know if that was because the offensive line was complete, hot garbage, against the Vikings, or he. He specifically, and we talked about it earlier, you're probably not going to be seeing Sewell. You're probably not going to be seeing Decker, Glasgow, so you could be looking at a full boatload of backups there. So a couple things we're going to talk about, and I'll roll this over to Dan next, is who we probably will be seeing starting. Obviously this is somewhat speculative, but there's a lot of things we kind of, this is, we've been around enough to kind of know who's probably not going to play, or, would be a surprise if we did see them actually playing. But, this is going to be the last time a lot of these guys play together, like Campbell said. This happens every year. There's turnaround in free agency and all of that stuff. And so, guys, how do we evaluate players in a game like this when, the motivation, the effort might vary wildly depending on their contract situations, Dan?
There's a lot of factors that go into it. You have, well, number one, do we have anybody, which I don't believe we do, that are trying to hit contractual targets? That's the whole, you saw Max Crosby blow up. He wanted to play. I don't know if he had an incentive somewhere,
Oh,
but
yeah.
he got mad, and they finally just put him in IR because they're just like,
Mike says he
you're not
hasn't
going to
found
play.
any. Yeah.
But I don't think Lions have any like major incentives that are tied to playing in this game. Nobody's trying to hit 1,000 yards or
Right.
playing 40% of the snaps or whatever. So take that out. But then the next thing is you have development. You've got a bunch of guys. You need to know, are these the guys or not, or do we need to go look for a replacement for them? We got a bunch of D linemen that are in their third, fourth year that are just like, guys like Pascal, they're not playing, those guys. But you got Mekhi Wingo sitting out there. It's like, what does this guy give us?
Yeah, you got to believe if
cut?
they thought Mekhi Wingo, like he would have played by now, right?
Well,
why
but
are we
here's
just going
the
to show
thing: you're
up and
trying
play
to
him?
win.
Yeah,
You're trying to win games. You've got a number 1 overall draft pick and Tyreek Williams ahead of him. You got DJ Reader coming off of injured reserve ahead of him. You got Lee McNeil coming off IR ahead of him, and you've got Ray Lopez who's playing out of his mind. The guy just couldn't get on the field. So that's the separate thing. The second step is you need to get guys on the field that you need to see what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
Have they progressed,
yeah.
right? So Wingo fits that mold. And to me, I would promote absolutely, if he's healthy, Hassanin up from the practice squad and get this kid some live reps in this game at edge. I wouldn't start him, but I'd get him some time out there. You need to see what you have in Manu. If you're going to activate him from IR, bring him in for this game. We're not going to play Sewell and Decker the entirety of the game. They're both beat up and nicked up, and you certainly aren't going to pay Goff. I'd make Goff the third string emergency quarterback, and I'd promote Beathard and Hassanin from the practice squad and let those guys, make Beathard the backup, start Kyle Allen, right? And then you need to get as many of these old linemen in there as possible. Like Miles Frazier has only played left guard. You need to see if this kid can play right tackle. Because if Decker does all of a sudden quit, Penny Sewell's moving to left tackle. We are not going to start some random rookie at left tackle or go sign a $100 million left tackle on free agency. You already have him on your roster. You're going to see who can play right tackle for the Lions to replace him. And Miles Frazier and Brent's been beating this kid's drum for all year. He is
I think he's related to Brent as much as Brent is showing the love. I mean, is that your uncle?
I mean, LSU's not too far from down there where Brent lives. But the kid's played pretty much every position but center at LSU, right, Brent?
Yeah.
It's tough to know whether or not he's practiced there. I mean, has he practiced the right tackle?
We don't know. If he hasn't, then get him in a right guard. I mean, you need to see what he can do, right? I mean, again, so it's about getting guys in the field that need to play, right? Mm-hmm. The DBs we don't need to know because they've all played.
Yeah, right.
So we know what they can and can't do.
This is true.
Linebacker is just stuffed full of veterans behind the starters. So you're down to D-line. So you're down to Wingo. You're down to Hassanin. Maybe, I don't know. Really, I don't think there's anybody else. Tyleek obviously should start. Get him more time in there. And then on the O-line, get Neese some time, get Frazier some time, get Ratledge. I wouldn't play him as much. Glasgow. Here's the thing about Glasgow. I don't want to pay him if they're going to try and cut him. Because if he gets injured with like a knee injury, we're screwed. We have to pay him that $8 million salary next year.
That's true.
It's guaranteed for injury.
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
They're probably not even going to play him. Probably why they didn't play him last week. They know that he's pretty much gone. Or going to have to take a reduced salary to stay. So
I kind of feel like Iguacan is going to play center.
He's gone.
What's that?
I kind of feel like Iguacan's going to play center. And
you can't. You can't play center unless you put somebody in IR because he is out of elevations from the practice squad. Last week was his third elevation. To bring him up this week, they have to sign him to the active roster, which means they have to cut somebody or put somebody in IR. So they can do it, obviously, but if you bring a Manu back from IR, that's another body you got to displace off the active roster. So there's a lot of games going on here, shell games with the roster management on top of all the rest of this stuff. That's kind of saying there's like 4 or 5 things that come into play, how they're going to get there. But I personally would give Ratledge some snaps at center, get Frazier in there at the guards and tackle, get Neese some time in there at one of the guards. I would not play Penny, Glasgow, or Decker. And if you're not playing those guys, you're definitely not playing Goff. And I wouldn't play, I would not play Gibbs. Let Monty start and make sure Vaki gets some reps at running back to see, hey, we got rid of Craig Reynolds, so make sure Vaki is up to snuff.
I mean, Sailors
is a free agent. Who cares? I mean, he hasn't really shown a lot as a kick returner. So maybe he is a good backup at running back. He can fill that Craig Reynolds role.
Well, I'm thinking
he's definitely more explosive than Reynolds.
If we're going to be sitting Gibbs, I think maybe Sailors gets in there just from a depth perspective.
Well, they're both. Obviously they'll both be active, right? Sailors he's a exclusive rights free agent. He's coming back if they want to pay him the base. I think it's a little over $1 million is what's going to be the base minimum salary next year. So. And then we've got this other kid. I forgot all about him. Kai Robichaux. This dude's sitting on our IR. He's been there all year. We signed him but he's signed for 2 more years. Got him signed through 2027.
I'm tucking him away.
Running back. Yeah. So,
weapon.
That's my feeling on it. Don't play anybody that you don't want to get a knee injury that's going to miss next year, 2026, because that's what happened with Branch. Tears his Achilles. He's going to miss at least a third of the season next year, Yep. So anybody that you really need, the core guys, Jack Campbell, get him out of there. Play Stewart. Let him start at there, Rodriguez is a free agent. Play him. Anzalone's not, he's a free agent. Play him, Anybody that you're counting on that's signed for next year as a core player, I don't see them needing to play much. Maybe a series or 2. And who cares if the Bears roll us? Because let them get all hyper and excited about how they beat the big bad Lions and they can run their mouths. And then next year when they don't get 800 turnovers and playing a last place schedule, and all of a sudden they find themselves in last place, they're going to dawn on them that they really weren't as good as they thought they were.
There he is. Dan Keener is back.
Their defense carried them. It certainly wasn't Mr. 58% completion percentage.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Mic drop.
Brent.
I described it as I described it as the third leg of the stool, if you remember. We're missing the third leg of the stool here with Dan being out. But yeah, the Bears are going to want to roll us. There is no doubt about it. And
they
frankly,
probably will.
There's some merit. There's some merit to what Dan's saying. It's probably going to happen whether we play our best players or not. Just because the motivation's not going to be super high for anybody, going out there to play. As much as Dan Campbell is a blood and guts grit guy, he's only got so much pull in situations like this. Now, the good news is the defense with a lot of backups played pretty well last week, but we'll see. We'll see what they do on the defensive side, because Dan was really talking a lot about a lot of the depth on the offense playing them. I think that you play a lot of the defensive players and just get them out there and try to hold the Bears in check as much as you can, knowing that they're going to want to put up a 55 burger on us this weekend.
Yeah, they're going to want to go up a lot and a lot early so that they can get their starters out and cruise and not worry about it. I do feel like Ben Johnson was a bit embarrassed by week 2. And so there'll be a little gamesmanship, which I would expect. I mean, that's, if you want to stop them, then you got to stop them from doing that. That's football. And so, it should be interesting. I certainly don't consider this a full-on revenge game with, our guys being out and, us not having anything to play for. We're going to do our best we can, but I think, Dan, you made a lot of great points in terms of, let's look at some of these guys and say, listen, we have nothing to gain by keeping these guys in and playing them. But if they're free agents, let's do that. So before we move on to actually talking about some free agents, guys, let's talk a little bit about how this game affects our draft position. So we're looking at, and I'm going to pull up this that Dan had put together, which is our draft pick probabilities.
I stole that from Twitter, so
yes,
I'm not going to take credit for it. I came to the same conclusion, but not that cool.
Yeah, this does look great. So shout out to Doug Analytics for providing this. And so if you look down here, we have a 0.2% chance of getting the 12th pick in the NFL draft. The highest percentage is 31.6, which is pick 13, followed by pick 14 at 29. So that seems the most likely is pick 13 or 14, pick 16. This is all based on the other games that are happening and whether or not we win or lose.
Strength of schedule is really what it's based on. All those games go into it, and as teams win and lose in the last week of the season, it's not just your own strength of schedule against who you're playing, which is that obviously increases and decreases it, but it's everybody else you played. So if teams are tanking that you beat, that's going to drive your strength of schedule down if they're trying, like us playing the Giants, right? We beat the Giants, but the Giants are in the hunt for, the number 1 overall pick. Or I don't think they are anymore, but they're in looking at a top 5 worst record in the league. So, they lose. That helps us in strength of schedule and helps our tiebreaker.
Yeah, I don't have a rooting guide here to be able to say, well, in order for us to have the 12th overall pick, we need to lose and then have these other teams win and lose and all of that kind of stuff. I'm not gonna play that game. Go ahead.
The other chart gives a little bit better insight on that, Chris. The one that's got the so not that one. That one. So like the colors that match, those are teams that play each other, right? So the New Orleans and Atlanta, that doesn't do a whole lot for us unless Atlanta wins. Right?
Atlanta's win. Yeah, I was going to say we got to root the teams that we're rooting for are the ones.
Yeah. Tampa is the team that we need to win, because if Tampa beats Carolina, that ensures that both those teams are after us in the draft. And then we need Dallas to win because they have that half game with that tiebreaker. Yep. And this is assuming we're losing, right? And then, Pittsburgh and Baltimore is really irrelevant because I don't think either one of those are going to pass us in strength of schedule. Pittsburgh obviously has a game up on us anyway. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's Tampa is the key game for us. They need to win, and then Dallas needs to beat. They're playing the Giants, I think.
And Atlanta's sitting at 12. So if Atlanta, Tampa, Dallas win and we lose, we're 12. Well, we're 12. I mean, that's
I don't know if that's the case because they have a game.
because
They're a game
Atlanta has
behind us. But look at their
496.
strength of schedule, though. Right,
496 to 491, right?
right. But look who they're playing. See that plus or minus column on the far right?
Yeah.
They're playing New Orleans, who's
We're
6
playing
and 10,
Chicago.
and we're playing an 11-5 team. That means that team is above our current strength of schedule, and that team that they're playing is below their current strength of schedule. So their direct game is going to decrease their strength of schedule. Ours is going to go up, and then depending on how the rest of our 16, 17 games come out, it'll adjust it. But I've seen it. I don't see us moving or them moving 0.006 above us. I think 12
How about this?
is our best
That's
bet.
the only way we get to 12 is Dallas, Tampa, and Atlanta
Everybody
winning. That's the only way we get to 12.
Yeah, any shot at getting to 12. So I don't know what that 0.5% is in that other chart. I didn't even think we could get to 12, to be honest with you, because of that. But it's got to be everybody that we've played pretty much losing. So
yeah.
All right, guys, and folks, we've got a lot of folks here in the chat, and the 2 Fan is back, loving the show as always. Not a lot to comment on. Hoping the Lions play well on Sunday, and looking for next season to start already. Thanks for joining us, the 2 Fan, tonight. We always appreciate those folks who chime in every single week, including our super fan, number one super fan, Wanda Rich. She just got on, had a problem connecting today. I don't know. Did you try connecting on X? Because we're not even live on X.
Must be a family thing.
Yeah, it must be a family thing. Donkey Kong says Goff's reps have already contacted Lions executives to restructure his contract per Lions Talk Live about 90 minutes ago. That's interesting. I haven't seen that, but not surprising. And Donkey Kong says Sewell to left tackle. We got something crazy going on with our ticker on the bottom, and we'll have to fix that. I'm just now noticing that. In case anyone is looking at the ticker, that is just word salad happening down there. Sewell to left tackle, round 1 right tackle, free agent center. We have 3 guards. Brian says they do have an extremely large family because we were talking about you guys having Frazier as your long lost nephew. And TRS Darren, how many 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th rounders has Brad Holmes drafted and Dan developed into significant piece? It's pretty easy to get 1st and 2nd round to be starters. Well, some teams blow it.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
Some teams blow 1st and 2nd rounders on a consistent basis. We could certainly name a lot of those, but Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Who's the 4th?
Yeah, that's one of them.
Tesla.
I think his jury's
3rd
out.
rounder.
He's progressing, but
Rodriguez was a 6th rounder. But yeah, there's some of these players were late rounders that we thought would be starters, like Levi O and others that just haven't. But in any event, gentlemen, let's roll into some of these.
Christian Mahogany was a 6th rounder.
Christian Mahogany. There you go. I'm having all kinds of problems.
I mean, yeah, like Barnes was a 4th. St. Brown was a 4th, right? James Houston's still in the league. He was a 6th. Rodriguez was a 6th. Chase Lucas is still floating around the league. He was a 7th. Let me see who else we got here. Sorsdale's still in the roster.
Sorsdale's still there. Yeah.
Mahogany was a 6th. Vaki was a 4th. Wingo was a 4th. Manu was a 4th. That might be one of his drafts that jury is way out on, was 24.
Frazier's a 5th. Hassanin.
Hassanin was a 6th. Frazier was a 5th. We still got Dan Jackson. We don't even know what this kid can do. He got hurt before the season started at safety. I mean, there was a 7th, right? Lovett was a 7th. He's been on the roster most of the year. So, again, it's we ran into this, with the previous administration. It's like sometimes guys don't pan out here, but they're still good players that are still in the league.
Yeah.
And you got to give credit where credit's due. But there are a lot of guys, the hit rate on anything after the 4th round, I'm sure, is super low. There's a lot of depth guys, but there's not a lot of all pros and Pro Bowl players that are coming in that late. Guys like who's a quarterback for San Francisco, Purdy. I mean, that was
Brock Purdy. That's
pure
exactly what I was
luck.
thinking of.
That dude, he came in, he got in the right system at the right time, and frankly, he's kind of inconsistent. Let's be honest.
I think he's
he had a couple good
for
years.
a 7th
He
round draft
looked
pick,
great the other night against
he's
Chicago.
fine.
Sure, but I'm saying is like, again, you get in the right system.
Sure.
It doesn't matter where you're drafted. I mean, Brad said that before. I mean, people pissed and moaned about him taking Jahmyr Gibbs. Him and Bijan Robinson, 2 running backs, went in the top 12 or whatever that was in that draft. They're probably 2 of the better running backs in the NFL right now. Same thing with Campbell. You don't draft a running back or a linebacker in round 1. Well, yeah, we did, and they're both probably going to be Pro Bowlers this year. So,
yep.
Seemed to work out. So, but to the point, it is easier to hit on 1st and 2nd rounders than it is on later rounds. But jury's out. But those guys are meant to be depth anyway. I mean, the odds that they're going to turn into a solid starter, let alone a Pro Bowler, are astronomical.
Well, guys, let's transition into one of the things that we wanted to discuss here for fans who have reached out, and that is kind of our top priorities for free agent. Now, this feels like a let's talk about this next week and an off-season thing, but I think it kind of plays into who's starting, who's playing. We touched a little bit on that, some of the solid points that Dan brought forth in terms of, if this is a free agent, should we play him or not? That kind of thing. What's the point? But guys, I'll kind of roll out what I kind of feel like our priorities for us, and then roll it to you guys, and we can talk about who we think is going to be. Let's put it this way: who we think should be here, not who we think what Brad Holmes will do, because. I think those can be 2 different things.
They'll take the best available either way, but
and then who's gone. I mean, I think AQM's a guy that I think he's proven he can produce. Wasn't super consistent. I think there was but I felt like he got injured, played through that. Certainly showed up last week, and he's on the wrong side of 30, so that's kind of a bummer. And so he may, fish around and see what kind of contract he can get from everybody else. Alex Anzalone, I think the hint was that at the beginning of the season, it kind of looked like, hey, this may be his last season, the deal that they gave him. But he did have a solid year, again, on the wrong side of 30. Him being what I think he's 32, that's a bit of a concern. And then 2 DBs I'd like to see because I feel like their versatility. They proved some versatility, albeit, one of them got toasted a few times. I think another year in this system would be good in the right position, and that's Amik Robertson in the nickel, and Rock Ya-Sin is another guy I'd love to see sort of come back. Maybe a Roy Lopez, Malcolm Rodriguez, Nowaski, those kind of guys are really good fits. I think Lopez had a really solid end of the year, really showed up. But I kind of feel like DJ Reader's gone. I don't see him. I don't see him coming back. Davenport. I mean, that's one where I'm like, I'm okay with him going, but I don't know. Like he just can't stay healthy, and then when he is actually playing, I just am not seeing anything, and it could be his injury. And then Pascal, I think, really just never.
You got my list, Chris. I posted it. It's in there. It's color coded. I made it easy.
Where is it in the chat?
And the thing that's got the red, you'll see it
in the Zoom chat.
No, it's in our other
okay.
chat where you got these things from.
Got it.
Yeah, I broke it down
Stack.
into a
Yellow,
yes,
green, red.
green, light
This right
green,
here?
orange, and red. Yes, sir, right there. So, the ones that are green, the darker green, those are guys we should look to bring back. And I do include Anzalone in that if it's possible. Light green are bringing back at the right price. Orange are things that, like, yeah, maybe if we need cheap depth, I'm not paying for these guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the ones in red, I've seen enough. I'm done with them.
Yep.
They really aren't either on the wrong side of 30, which a lot of them aren't. A couple of them are young. They just can't stay healthy, and it's Levi, it's Levi, Davenport, Pascal, and then Zeke Turner. We signed him as a, whatever, but he just never got on the field. So,
Yep.
but there's a lot of yellow on there. Some of the corners, the Mills, the Mullettes, a lot of the guys we signed mid-year. Cunningham's a guy, again, got hurt. We don't really know what he could do. Cologne, we know what he can do and can't do. So if he's cheap, maybe bring him back. He's only 28.
Mm-hmm.
The problem I have is, like, a guy like AQM. I would love to have him back. I just think he's priced himself out of here. He's going to command $10-12 million a year.
He's going to
I
go
just don't think
fishing.
we're going to pay that for a 31-year-old journeyman defensive end. Especially if we grab an end early in the draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, 100% like Rock Yassin. I really like the stability he brought in that veteran presence. I liked Fursker. I love what he gave us, even though he's going to be 31 next year. Skipper. I still like Jamarco Jones. He actually played as well as Skipper did. I think he actually had beats. Skipper was injured, but he had actually won the swing tackle role before he himself got injured.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy started on the Super Bowl for Seattle. Zylstra, Rodriguez, Nice, Sailors, all these guys. All the guys at the very bottom, those are restricted and exclusive rights. It looks like exclusive rights guys are going to cost us $1 million. The problem I have with the restricted is that to do the right of first refusal, it's like $3 million for some of these guys. And I just don't see them offering that to guys like Tyrus Wheat and Nowaski, and they'll offer it to Bates.
Yeah, they
I'm
just
sorry,
feel
he's an
like
exclusive rights.
guys,
But
right?
Kennedy, maybe.
Yeah.
He'd be the one I see that they'd even offer it to. Now they can negotiate with them and sign them, to less than what the restricted free agent tender is ahead of time. But they probably have to give them a couple years and pay them more money and guarantee them the equivalency of that restricted free agent tender.
Yeah.
And that's just for right of first refusal. Most of these guys are undrafted free agents, so you're not getting anything for them anyway. So
that's a great breakdown. Yeah, and I think a guy like Kennedy is a guy they trust. He knows the system, obviously, has been around forever.
And he's still a restricted free agent because he
it's
has
incredible.
less than 3 years of experience.
It's just incredible. That
Remember when he used to wear that big helmet? He's running around with that giant helmet. I think this is a really good list, and frankly, I can't really quibble with any of the Reds. The Reds are clearly gone. I think the Lions need to re-sign AQM. Give him $10 million signing bonus, and $3 million a year over 3 or 4 years. Something that's pretty salary cap friendly if he doesn't work out in a year or two. And then I think we need to look at either free agency and or the draft, and build up some depth at the defensive end position, because we cannot go into another season without being able to put pressure on quarterbacks. I think that's number one. It was number one last year, and we didn't really address it.
How much of it though?
Number
1B. I'm sorry. How much of it, Brent, is it scheme? We saw, them lining Hutch up in the wide 9. I still don't know what's going on with like the Barnes rush position. Like when they, like, to me, like whatever's going on there, and this may be a Shepherd thing. We didn't even talk about the coordinators. That feels like a next
coaches.
week. Yeah, that feels like a next week conversation for sure. But I think some of it has to do with the scheme. Like I feel like AQM in a better scheme
100%.
can be that guy. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't. I want like a guy that just flies off the edge to bookend with, opposite of Hutchinson or sometimes next to Hutchinson. I don't even care if, because Hutchinson can move around for sure.
I like to see him inside more.
Yeah.
He dominates.
Like, I'd love
inside.
to see
we have not done that.
somebody that just flames off of the edge, that causes havoc on the edge. And AQM's not that guy. And, he's a solid guy and he makes plays and, but he's just not going to be that guy that's just going to, make the, put the tackles on skis. He's just not going to do that. Do you feel like, Brent, that it's a scheme issue, or is it a talent issue? We need or both maybe.
The best teams have great schemes and great players, right? So we debated this the past couple of weeks about does Shep get another year, and MCDC was pretty non-committal today about making a decision or announcing anything on the defensive coordinator for next season.
Yeah.
I think it's at this point, I think it's 50-50 whether or not Shep comes back. For sure we're going to see a change in offensive coordinator, but the bottom line is players make plays, and AQM has demonstrated the ability to put pressure on the quarterback in a situational. You don't want him out there, 40 plays a game. You want to be able to roll him out there pretty fresh 6, 8, 10 times during the game. Those, and look, you're going to pay that same amount of money that I was just describing to some of these veterans that Dan, talked ad nauseum about over the past weeks, not being worth the money. And so why not, give the guy a little bit of money that plays that situational pass rusher role that some of the old veterans would have played, and develop and develop a defensive end or two to be able to come in and perform. Scheme matters as much as the players, but you need the players to be able to make the plays. And watching Davenport, if we re-sign Davenport again, it's going to kill me. I just can't stand watching the guy stand there and players running around
just
him,
in the
and he's
way.
just kind of standing
He
up
just
like
felt
he
like
doesn't want to get injured.
Yeah.
He's it's terrible.
Yeah, it's true. I think when I look back at the film, and Mike Terry, thank you for this. We're gonna talk about this stat. When I looked at the film, I kept on looking for the Vikings film. I kept on looking for lack of effort because it just felt like a lack of effort, and I didn't see a lot of it. Davenport, that one was glaring for sure. But even offensively, I didn't see. It wasn't for lack of effort. I think it just was sloppy. But Davenport just stood out. The Aleem looked really bad on one play trying to chase somebody down. I think he was chasing Brosmer down, and he looked like he was in slow motion. But I think he's battling injuries at this point, abs or whatever. But Mike Terry, Lions 16th in pressure rating, 4 spots down from last season. All teams that are ahead of us this year are in the playoffs, so that goes right into your point as well, guys. I knew. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Real quick.
Yeah.
I just posted. Remember, I do the stats right for the for the pregame and everything.
Mm-hmm.
As of week 10, after leading into the Eagles game, this was a top 10 defense. Everybody thinks that we sucked all year. We didn't suck all year. This defense was playing well at the beginning of the year. We lost Kirby Joseph, Ryan Branch, Terrion Arnold. That killed our defense. And yet we still had 2 guys get 10-plus sacks and continue to get pressure. And our run game was still decent. But when you lose a defense is the entirety of the defense. It's not one guy or one position. And if every position affects another guy, if those defensive ends are just absolute studs and they're getting there in 2 seconds, it makes your DBs look better. If your DBs are just locked down corners, then that's going to let your defensive line look better because the quarterback can't throw the ball. He's going to have to scramble. There's nobody to throw it to. Same thing with the linebackers. And our defense started going downhill when the middle of it got gutted. And then when McNeil came back, our rush defense actually took a dump because he just wasn't up to up to par, right? I mean, the guy hadn't played in over a year.
Yeah.
And Reeder and Williams and Lopez, they actually had our rush defense pretty good up to the point where McNeil came back. And as McNeil got integrated in, our rush defense started dropping more and more, you know. And you can see right there, we were 8th going into that Eagles game, rush defense. And we held them to few yards that game too. So
something we didn't
anyway,
even touch on, right? Branch and our secondary for next season. Well, we need to dig into that. What's the trade-off between drafting and developing defensive ends? Are we going to have to replace Kirby, et cetera? I mean, that's great discussions for the coming weeks.
And edge is high up there, but we have 2 linebackers under contract next year, by the way, as of right now. So that's a problem. And you've got 2 safeties, as you just said, one who's not going to play for a third of the year, and the other guy, you know, hopefully his knee can be repaired, but if it can't, he's an albatross around us. He's got massive contract for the next 5 years or 4 years. And you not only do you have that money tied up, but you also have a guy that's an all-pro or was an all-pro that's not playing. So you got to find a replacement. Maybe Dan Jackson's that guy. I don't know. You know, maybe he's the next you know, whatever. But but yeah, I mean, you're sitting there and we're going to be in the middle of the first round. We might be looking at like grabbing one of these OSU linebackers, maybe trading up to get Caleb Downs. You know,
I would not mind.
You may have to get a defensive player.
You got to have to go up.
Stud
you're probably going to go to the top. Here, I mean, Caleb Downs could go top 5.
He could. I mean, you know, we'll see how the playoffs go, obviously. But and I'm just talking about the 3 OSU guys. But those 3 guys are going to go in probably the top 15 picks. And Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, and Caleb Downs. And that doesn't even include Caden McDonald, who's a defensive tackle, who's also a stud, right? So, you know, those guys are going to go. Those quarterbacks are going to get overinflated, even though they all suck. You know, they're going to go in the top 10, 15 probably. So that's going to push some guys down. Someone's going to draft Caden Proctor thinking he's a man-child. He's going to be like that dude for the Bengals that ran with his shirt off about 20 years ago. Remember him? Man boobs flopping around as he ran with his shirt off. He came from Alabama too, I might add. Proctor's he's just too slow to play tackle in the league. He looks bad this year. So he's 344 and 6'7". He's going to have to play guard.
Boy, I tell you what,
system.
Dan, when you take 3 weeks off, man, we just can't get you to stop, man. You just rolling, and then you just start going into scarlet and gray territory.
Bonus content.
Bonus scarlet and gray for all of the Lions Greymates.
Hey, Michigan's got some guys, too. I mean, they got some players, too, that are going to be out there, you know. But it's going to be interesting. I just don't see us going O-line in the first round this year. I think we're going to end up going with he'll take the best player available, but it's probably going to be a defensive player is my guess.
Lava Desert,
that's what's cost us the games.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Lava Desert, thanks for joining us. If healthy, it is top 12. Need pass rush depth, and I'd love to get a pass rush start. I'd love to get more than just depth. I'd like to get starters in the first round. And a number 2 defensive end, Robin Like. Not sure what Robin Like is.
I'll tell you, Hutch
Batman
had a
and
great
Robin.
year.
Yeah.
Hutch had a great year.
But to your point, it's like he's thrown all kinds of assets at defensive line since he came here.
Yeah.
And where are they? They're all in NFI and injured. Pascal or Orozike, whatever, Wingo, Hassanin. He's thrown. It's not like he hasn't tried. It's just the guys he's drafted. And who was it? Who was the last GM? Not him.
Quinn?
Mayhew.
Martin Mayhew.
Was it Mayhew that would? It was either Quinn or Mayhew that would take those risks on those second rounders, or maybe even it was Millen. I don't remember.
I don't know. They're both clowns. But so I mean,
when you take risks on second round on injured guys that should be, that were supposed to be first rounders, but they dropped, sometimes it pans out, but many times it doesn't. Teddy, I can't remember his name, linebacker from Oklahoma. He's actually a heck of a coach.
Teddy
right
Lehman.
Now, by the way.
Ted Lehman.
Teddy Lehman.
Teddy Bruschi.
Right?
No, I wish.
Wheelchair worked out, of course.
Teddy Lehman.
But yeah, that's where you run into that issue. So
Yeah, Lava, thanks for joining us. We did cover a lot of the offensive line needs, and we're going to go. Please, for those that are watching, please hit like, subscribe. We are going to be covering this way more in depth as the offseason goes. We've got a new segment. By position. We've got a new segment that we're going to be adding in the offseason as well, which I haven't talked to Dan yet about, but we will after the show.
Mike Terry's beard.
Yes. What we found in Mike Terry's beard this week. No, but but we did talk about center, and I guess in summary, Dan, we're looking at hopefully seeing Tate maybe get some reps there. He certainly can play that. Moving some guys around like Frazier to right tackle, maybe eventually Sewell over to left tackle. We'll see how that works. Shifting some guys around. We know Glasgow is obviously not the answer. Aguacan is probably not the answer, but maybe from a depth perspective. But center position is, like I said, boy, that position feels way more important now that we don't have a guy named Frank Ragnow snapping. But Frank Ragnow is not, not off the table. But I think we probably should, maybe.
You don't hear him talk about rehabbing that hamstring. He's off the table.
Yeah,
the guy fished and hunted all season with a torn hamstring, and it didn't seem to bother him. He's not gonna go through all that rehab if he's just gonna go hunt and fish again. So
we'll see. All right, guys. Thanks as always to everyone that joined us tonight. If you're catching us on replay, thank you for that. Please, give us some comments, hit some likes, subscribe, smash all the things that YouTube puts in front of you. And if you're listening on any podcast player, please subscribe there, follow, and review. Ladies and gentlemen, we are the Gray Mains, and as always, go Lions.
Go Lions.
Go Lions.
Busted outside left. Jameer down to the 10. Jameer to the 5. Jameer to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Hand off Berry. Skirts to the left side. Breaks the tackle. And he will take it in. Touchdown.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. That's what I'm talking about. It is caught.